All right, we are given this, what is this, a cubic function, right? How do I know that? Well, x to the power of 3 is our highest power of x. There's this a term out the front, and in fact, if we skip ahead, that's what we're looking for. The only other information we're given is this mouthful of a sentence. The gradient of the graph of the function at the point where x equals 1 is 3. So read that about 10 times to wrap your head around it, but we'll break it down together. So let's just get rid of that to make it a bit easier to read. So the gradient of f of x at x equals 1 is 3. Alright, that's a bit nicer to read. So as an equation, let's represent this information as an equation, and we'll go from there. So the gradient when x is equal to 1 is equal to 3. Alright, so f prime indicates the derivative, right, the gradient function. So when we put in x is equal to 1, the gradient will be 3. Cool. So to use this information, we first need to find the gradient function. All right, so finding the gradient function, in other words, the derivative of a constant is 0. Derivative of minus 4x is minus 4. Derivative of plus 5x squared, right, take the power, multiply it out the front, subtract 1 off the power, so plus 10x. Derivative of plus ax cubed, take the power out the front, so 3 times a, remember a is just a constant, so just treat it as such, and then x to the power of 2. And just to clear it up, I'll get rid of that 0. Alright, so we've calculated the derivative. Now we can use that information that when x is equal to 1, the gradient, in other words, this whole term, must equal 3. So negative 4 plus 10, well, we know x is equal to 1, so substituting in 1 for x, and that whole expression must equal 3, right? The gradient at x equals 1 is equal to 3. So again, this bit out the front is just showing that we're substituting 1 into the derivative, but strictly speaking, you could omit that if it's confusing you. So now all we're doing is focusing on this. One equation, one unknown, so we can solve. So let's simplify it a bit. So negative 4, 10 times 1, ooh, 10, right? Yeah, definitely. Plus 3 times a times 1 squared is 3a. Can group those two terms. So 6 plus 3a equals 3. Subtract 6 from both sides. Divide both sides by 3. And we're left with a equals negative 1, which was the question. Find the value of a. It's right there. Yep, so just to summarize that, our first step was to read this line about 3 times, and I scribbled out a few of the redundant words. And so once we got that, we acknowledged we needed to find the derivative, which we did here. And then with that derivative, we substituted in x equals 1, right, by equating it to 3. So if you equated the derivative to 3, that is actually, the achieved step. If you then went on to evaluate it correctly to find the final correct answer, that is merit.